Your Majesties, honored guests, dear sisters and friends, today I stand before you in a moment of quiet reflection, for in the silence I hear you. I hear the voices of a people, the hopes of a generation, and the unspoken bond between two sisters. As your princess, I have grown with a deep sense of this responsibility, a responsibility not merely inherited, but chosen through work, through learning, through listening. From the earliest days, my sister and I have been guided by the example of those who came before us, our parents, our family, our nation, and we have learned that service is not a title, but a promise. My sister, Infanta Sofia of Spain, and I share many things, our home, our name, and the journey ahead, but we also share something more, a commitment. She and I know that to carry a title is to carry the trust of many, and to be worthy of that trust requires humility, effort, and heart. In the moments of silence, the times when there is no applause or spotlight, I have heard our citizens' quiet needs, our environment's subtle calls, our culture's gentle plea to remember who we are and where we come from. To you, the young and the experienced, the voices I have heard say, we need purpose, we need solidarity, we need hope. And I answer, yes. We need a Spain that grows together, that lifts those who struggle, that listens as much as it leads. To Sofia, my sister, my companion on this path, thank you for your presence, your loyalty, your laughter, and your strength. In the calm between the duties, I hear your support, and I promise that I will walk this journey with you and for you. To all of you here and all of you across our nation, I ask for your trust, not because of the crown I wear, but because of the work I pledge to undertake. In the silence I hear your hopes. In the silence I hear the future we can build together. With respect for our roots, with open eyes to our challenges, and with courage to imagine a Spain renewed, let us then move forward in common purpose, mindful that in our quietest moments there lies the greatest strength. Because it is in the silence that we truly listen, and when we listen, we act. Thank you. I will serve you with loyalty, humility, and devotion. And I thank you for walking with us on this path in the stillness of reflection. There are moments when I truly understand what responsibility and service mean. They are not words to be spoken lightly, nor values that belong only to ceremony. They are living commitments, quiet, constant, and deeply human. Responsibility begins with understanding that one's place in the world is not defined by privilege, but by purpose. To serve is to listen, to learn, and to give of oneself not only when eyes are watching, but when silence surrounds you and the work remains unseen. Since I was very young, I have been taught that service is not an obligation that comes with a title. It is an act of belonging. It is about being part of something greater than oneself, about contributing to a shared story that began long before I was born and will continue long after me. To serve is to continue a legacy of care, of unity, and of respect. And it is within that understanding that responsibility finds its meaning. Responsibility is not heavy because of its weight, it is heavy because of its depth. It demands awareness, humility, and courage. It requires accepting that mistakes are part of learning, that growth is built on effort, and that the smallest actions often have the greatest impact. I have learned that to carry responsibility is not to stand above others, but to stand with them, to recognize their struggles, their hopes, and their dignity. There are times when I have watched people give their best without recognition, quietly dedicating themselves to their communities, their work, their families. Those are the moments that remind me what service truly is, not applause, but perseverance. Not words, but deeds. It is in those gestures, in the hands that help, in the voices that encourage, in the hearts that care, that a nation's strength is found. In every encounter, I have seen how Spain's greatness lies not only in its history, but in the everyday devotion of its people. Teachers who guide the young with patience and faith, doctors and nurses who comfort those in need, farmers and workers whose hands build what others depend on, artists and thinkers who keep alive our spirit of creativity and expression. Each of them serves, each of them carries responsibility, and together they form the heartbeat of a country that continues to grow stronger because of its people. Service also means continuity, the passing of values from one generation to the next. It means protecting the essence of who we are while embracing the changes that time brings. The world moves quickly, and with it, the challenges we face evolve. But what must not change is our sense of responsibility to each other, to our communities, to our environment, and to our future. As I have learned, the role of service is not to control, but to connect. It is to build bridges where there are divides, to create dialogue where there is silence, to find unity where there may be difference. Service is not about being followed. It is about inspiring others to walk beside you. Responsibility means giving direction without losing compassion, making decisions that include, and never forgetting that behind every number, every policy, every action there are people, hearts, and lives. In every step of this journey, I am reminded that responsibility is a privilege. It gives meaning to our choices. It reminds us that leadership is not about power, but about trust, and trust, once given, must be honored through transparency, integrity, and dedication. There are no shortcuts in service. It is built day by day, through consistency and through empathy. When I look at my generation, I see so much potential. We are growing in a world that is more connected, but also more complex. We face global challenges that demand local responsibility, challenges like climate change, inequality, and the preservation of peace. These are not problems for others to solve, they are ours too. And it is through service that we will find solutions through collaboration, creativity, and the belief that we can each make a difference. To serve also means to listen especially to those whose voices are often unheard. There is wisdom in listening, in taking time to understand before acting. Silence sometimes speaks louder than words. It teaches patience, humility, and respect. It reminds us that every person, no matter their position, has something valuable to offer. In moments of quiet reflection, I have come to realize that responsibility is not something that begins with adulthood or with ceremony. It begins the moment one decides to care. To care for others, for the environment, for one's country, for the truth. It begins when one chooses integrity over convenience, compassion over indifference, and service over self-interest. The spirit of responsibility must be lived, not declared. It must guide our education, our relationships, and our decisions. It must remind us that to build a better future, we must first be accountable to the present, and in that present, every action, however small, becomes a part of something larger. In silence, I have heard the quiet strength of those who dedicate their lives to service without seeking reward. They inspire me to give my best, to learn constantly, and to remember that no one serves alone. We serve together in harmony, each person contributing in their own way. Responsibility is not a burden shared by one. It is a bond that unites all. I carry this understanding with gratitude for those who have guided me, for those who continue to serve selflessly, and for the trust that has been placed in me. I know that service is a journey that never ends. It grows with time, with understanding, and with the will to continue giving. And so, as I look toward the future, I do so with the promise that I will strive to honor that responsibility not only through words, but through deeds. I will listen, I will learn, and I will serve with humility, because service is not about who we are, but about what we give, not about standing apart, but about standing together. In every quiet moment, I remind myself that responsibility is not a crown to wear, but a light to carry, one that must guide not only my steps, but all who believe in the strength of unity, the power of compassion, and the purpose of service. for it is through responsibility that we find meaning, and through service that we build a future worthy of hope. There are moments when the past feels close enough to touch, when the stories of those who came before us seem to breathe through the stones of our cities, the melodies of our songs, and the quiet traditions that shape our daily lives. To respect the past is to acknowledge that every step we take today is built upon the footsteps of others. It is to recognize that what we inherit is not only history, but identity, a shared legacy that binds us as a people, guiding us through change, reminding us who we are. I have learned that memory is not something to preserve in silence, but something to carry forward with meaning. The past is not a weight to hold us back. It is a foundation that gives us balance as we face the winds of time. Every generation before us faced its own trials, its own moments of doubt and renewal, and through those moments they built the world we now stand in, a world of ideas, traditions, and values that continue to give shape to our future. When I walk through the ancient streets of Spain, I am reminded of the countless lives that have passed through them, farmers and poets, soldiers and teachers, mothers and children, each of them leaving behind something invisible yet enduring. The strength of a nation lies in that continuity, the invisible thread that connects what was, what is, and what will be. Respecting the past means recognizing those invisible threads, cherishing them, and making sure they never unravel. To look back is not to resist progress, it is to understand it. Our traditions are not walls that confine us, they are roots that keep us grounded while we reach for the sky. A tree that forgets its roots cannot grow. A people who forget their past cannot move forward with purpose. In every lesson of history there is a message, sometimes whispered, sometimes spoken with force, that reminds us of the importance of unity, courage, and integrity. The past teaches us humility. It teaches us that we are part of something much larger than ourselves. It shows us how much effort, sacrifice, and vision were needed to build the freedoms, institutions, and rights we often take for granted. Those who came before us gave meaning to words like justice, honor, and dignity, words that we must now protect, not by repeating them, but by living them. At the same time, hope for the future is not born from forgetting the past. It grows from understanding it. Hope is not naive. It is an act of faith in what humanity can become. It is a quiet decision to believe that what we have inherited can be made even better. Hope is the bridge between remembrance and renewal. There is beauty in knowing that the past and the future are not opposites. They are companions. The past gives us wisdom. The future asks for courage. And between them stands the present, the place where both meet, where our choices matter. It is here in the present that we decide whether the stories written before us will continue to inspire or be forgotten. It is here that respect becomes action and hope becomes direction. I often think about the people of Spain, about their resilience, their generosity, their quiet strength. Ours is a nation shaped by centuries of diversity, creativity, and endurance. Each generation has carried the torch a little further, adding its own light to the flame. Today, that flame is ours to protect. It burns not only in monuments and ceremonies, but in the hearts of those who believe in working together, in preserving what is good, and in improving what must change. The past is alive in our languages, in our traditions, in our celebrations, and in our silences. It lives in the architecture that stands tall against time, in the art that tells stories without words, in the music that carries the rhythm of generations. Each of these is a reminder that progress without memory is hollow. True advancement respects the footsteps that led us here, and yet, while we must cherish the past, we cannot remain within it. Every era demands its own answers, its own creativity, its own courage. Hope is born when we take the lessons of yesterday and shape them into the promises of tomorrow. Hope is not passive. It is a call to responsibility. It asks us to build on what we have been given, to correct what must be corrected, to imagine a world more just, more compassionate, more united. The young, especially, carry that hope. We are the bridge between the wisdom of those who built our foundations and the unknown paths that await us. Our responsibility is to learn from the past without being confined by it, to respect what deserves to endure, and to transform what must evolve. We must carry forward the values that define us: respect, empathy, solidarity, and allow them to guide us as we face challenges that our ancestors could never have imagined. Every generation writes its own chapter in the story of a nation. Ours must be one of renewal rooted in gratitude. Gratitude to those who preserved peace, who defended rights, who believed in education, who worked tirelessly for a better life. Gratitude to those who taught us that to serve is to continue what others began, and to do so with sincerity and purpose. Hope also means trust that what we do today will matter, that even the smallest gestures will ripple into the future. When we speak with kindness, when we care for our planet, when we uphold honesty and fairness, we honor those who taught us what it means to be part of a community. We extend their legacy into tomorrow. In times of uncertainty, when the future seems fragile, we can look to the past for guidance, not to repeat it, but to remember that humanity has always found its way through resilience, through unity, through faith. Our history is full of moments when light returned after darkness, when voices of hope rose above despair. That same strength still lives in us. I believe that hope is not something we wait for, it is something we build. It begins in classrooms, in homes, in small acts of generosity. It grows in the hands of those who create, who heal, who teach, who lead. It thrives wherever people choose compassion over division and courage over fear. Hope is the quiet force that reminds us that tomorrow is not a gift, it is a task. And so, as we look to the horizon, we carry with us the wisdom of those who came before and the dreams of those who will come after. We are the link between memory and promise. To respect the past is to give meaning to our roots. To hope for the future is to give direction to our wings. In that balance between remembering and aspiring, we find our truest strength. Because the past gives us identity and the future gives us purpose, together they form the heartbeat of a nation that knows where it has been and dares to imagine where it can go. And if we walk forward with gratitude for what was and confidence in what will be, then our story will continue stronger, brighter, and always united by the same enduring truth that respect and hope together are the soul of progress. There is a quiet strength in humility that cannot be measured by titles, applause, or ceremony. It is a strength that grows in listening more than speaking, in understanding more than judging, and in placing the needs of others alongside one's own. Humility teaches that no matter the position one holds, the world is made richer not by the self alone, but by the bonds formed with those around us. To connect with people is to recognize their value, their struggles, their hopes, and their dignity. It is to see each individual not as a face in a crowd, but as a story, a presence that shapes the collective life of a community, a nation. From the earliest days, I have been reminded that the truest measure of leadership lies not in the grandeur of ceremony, but in the way one engages with others. It is in the simple gestures, a word of encouragement, a hand extended in support, an ear that truly listens, that humility is revealed. To connect with people is not to command, but to share in the human experience, to offer guidance while remaining open to learning, to act with care while recognizing that every voice matters. Humility allows one to see the world not solely through the lens of privilege, but through the lens of empathy. It reminds us that achievements are never the work of a single individual, but the result of many families, teachers, communities, colleagues whose efforts often go unnoticed. To serve with humility is to acknowledge that our own success is inseparable from the support and sacrifice of others. It is to celebrate the contributions of those who build, who care, who sustain, often without recognition, yet whose impact is immeasurable. Connecting with people requires patience and attentiveness. It is a willingness to enter into the lives of others, to understand their joys and fears, and to recognize that leadership or influence is meaningful only when it resonates with those we aim to serve. In meeting people where they are and speaking with sincerity and listening with respect, trust is formed, trust that can sustain communities, inspire action, and foster unity. Humility creates space for that trust to grow because it does not demand attention. It invites collaboration and shared purpose. In the presence of individuals who dedicate themselves to their communities, one sees the profound effect of humility. Teachers shaping young minds, doctors tending to the ill with tireless patience, volunteers offering their time to uplift the vulnerable, these acts, performed without expectation of recognition, are expressions of a truth that I hold close, that the worth of service is measured not by visibility, but by its impact on the lives of others. Humility is the acknowledgement that these acts are essential, that they form the backbone of a society that thrives not merely on its structures, but on the care, dedication, and empathy of its people. True connection with others requires authenticity. It demands that we recognize our own limitations, that we are willing to admit what we do not know, and to seek guidance from those who have walked different paths. Humility bridges divides because it is honest about human imperfection. It does not seek to elevate one above another, but to create a sense of shared endeavor, a recognition that every individual, regardless of their role or circumstance, contributes to the health and vibrancy of the community. In moments of reflection, I consider the countless individuals whose lives quietly shape the world around them. The shopkeeper who greets each customer with a smile, the neighbor who offers support without hesitation, the artisan who preserves traditions with care, these are the people who remind me that connection is not formed through spectacle, but through everyday acts of presence and consideration. Humility honors their contributions because it recognizes that dignity is not conferred by status, but by the impact of one's actions and the respect with which one treats others. It is also humility that teaches patience in the face of challenge. To connect with people is to recognize that progress is rarely immediate, that understanding takes time, and that meaningful change requires consistent effort. The smallest gestures repeated over time often have the most lasting effect. A kind word, a listening ear, a willingness to share burdens, these are the foundations upon which trust, collaboration, and community are built. Humility makes it possible to see the value of these small acts, to understand that no effort is too modest when it contributes to the well-being of others. The essence of connection is also rooted in respect. To approach another person with humility is to honor their experiences, to acknowledge their knowledge, and to recognize the validity of their feelings and perspectives. It requires setting aside preconceptions and truly engaging with the human being before us. In doing so, one learns that leadership, influence, and responsibility are most effective when exercised with empathy and consideration. When we prioritize understanding over assertion and listening over instruction, we cultivate bonds that strengthen communities and enrich lives. Humility fosters a sense of responsibility not only to others, but also to oneself. It encourages reflection on one's own behavior, on the choices we make, and on the ways in which we impact those around us. By recognizing our own imperfections, we become more compassionate, more forgiving, and more willing to work alongside others towards shared goals. In this way, humility is not weakness, but a source of strength, a quiet confidence that allows one to engage fully with the world while remaining grounded in awareness of one's place within it. To connect with people is to understand the diversity of their experiences. It is to listen to voices that may be different from our own, to learn from perspectives we have never considered, and to embrace the richness that comes from this plurality. Humility allows us to do this without judgment, to create spaces where dialogue is possible and where collaboration can flourish. In these connections, we find not only knowledge and insight, but also a sense of shared humanity that binds us across difference and reminds us that we are all part of a larger story. In my own journey, I have been fortunate to encounter countless individuals who embody these principles. Their dedication, sincerity, and openness serve as examples that shape my understanding of what it means to serve with humility and connect meaningfully with others. Their presence reminds me that true leadership is not defined by authority or recognition, but by the ability to inspire, to uplift, and to foster a sense of belonging for all. Ultimately, humility and connection are inseparable. One cannot exist without the other. Humility provides the foundation for authentic engagement. Connection gives humility its purpose. Together, they guide our actions, enrich our relationships, and create communities that are resilient, compassionate, and inclusive. Through these qualities, we learn that service is not about personal glory, but about contributing to something larger than ourselves, a legacy of care, respect, and unity that extends far beyond any individual. When we embrace humility and connection as guiding principles, we open ourselves to learning from every encounter, from every interaction, and from every person we meet. We recognize that every life has value, every voice has meaning, and every act of kindness has the potential to ripple outward in ways that transform communities and shape the future. Humility allows us to honor those contributions. Connection allows us to carry them forward, to amplify them, and to weave them into the shared fabric of our society. In the quiet moments of reflection, I am reminded that the power of humility and connection lies not in grand declarations, but in consistent, everyday choices. It is in the willingness to listen when others are speaking, to offer help without expectation, to recognize the worth of every individual, and to act with sincerity in all that we do. These are the moments when true influence is realized, when communities are strengthened, and when individuals feel seen, heard, and valued. Humility does not diminish ambition, it channels it. Connection does not require compromise of principles, it enhances understanding. Together, they create a path where leadership is shared, responsibility is mutual, and service is meaningful. They remind us that no one stands alone, that progress is achieved collectively, and that every action, no matter how small, contributes to the common good. And so, as I move forward in my own journey, I carry these lessons close, to approach every person with respect, to listen with intent, to act with compassion, and to serve without expectation. For in humility we find clarity, in connection we find purpose, and in living these principles we honor the true spirit of leadership, responsibility, and shared humanity.